Educational Communications and this station present Environmental Directions with Nancy Pearlman. On this series, we explore the effects of human influence on the Earth's ecosystems and discuss solutions to environmental problems which affect the quality of life on this planet. Environmental Directions gives you the kind of information you need to help you participate in decisions impacting your community, the nation, and the world. Now, here's your host, Nancy Pearlman.
Hello. My guest is Kindley Walsh Lawnor. She is president and CEO of Parks California. She was formerly vice president of Gap Inc. Foundation and Gap Inc. Sustainability. She has won many awards, including the National Retail Federation's People Shaping Retail's Future in the Giver category in 2015, and also San Francisco Business Times Bay Area's Most Influential Women in 2015. She has numerous memberships, including being on the advisory board of the University of California, Berkeley's Haas Center for Responsible Business and the International Labor Organization Advisory Committee, elected the U.S. Buyers Representative for the International Labor Organization's Better Work Program, and she is serving on the board of directors of the Western National Parks Association. Welcome. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
You are dedicated to preserving, protecting, and having the public enjoy the over 279 state parks in California. Those parks represent quite a variety of ecosystems. Can you tell us more about why these are state parks?
Sure, absolutely. Thanks again for having me here. So let's talk a little bit about the California State Park System. 279 parks. It's a big state, as you know, if you've driven around it. And what you see is a range that vary from urban parks, like LA State Historic Park in Los Angeles, Candlestick in San Francisco, to wilderness parks, sort of your beautiful mountain parks. You also have parks like Big Basin in the Santa Cruz district that recently burned to the ground in the CZU fire that's now being reimagined and redesigned to be a resilient park of the future. And our job is to work in these beautiful spaces with community, with government, and with other partners to solve two things. One, equitable access, helping people get to these beautiful places, feel relevancy and feel welcome when they get there, and then resource stewardship, which helps people protect these beautiful places. And instead of saying too many people in a park hurts them or damages them, we're working together with partners and with government to knit these two concepts together, that equity and access and resource stewardship can work hand in hand to create tomorrow's park stewards or caregivers of these beautiful places.
While Parks California is a 501c3 nonprofit organization, you actually were started as a statutory partner to the California State Park System. How did that happen?
Yeah, it's a great question. So it is a unique situation to be a statutory nonprofit partner to government. As a matter of fact, in California, Parks California is the first and currently only statutory nonprofit partner to all of government here in California. We were born through a tough time for parks. It was considered a time of transformation, a time of difficulty, not just budget difficulty, but a variety of things. It was hard to get work done within the parks. It was hard to keep them healthy. It was hard to invite new guests. And so a commission was put together, the Parks Forward Commission, and they worked with government and with a set of commissioners to determine what did state parks need in California to become these healthier, more resilient, more welcoming spaces. And one of those solutions was this idea of a statutory nonprofit partner. And ultimately, it was agreed to, and we were born through the legislature.
One of the areas that you're working on is to ensure indigenous perspectives. In that regard, your organization now has welcomed Rosie Claiborne, a Yurok Cultural Resources Development Director and Tribal Heritage Preservation Officer, to be Parks California's first member of Indigenous Heritage.
That's right. We are delighted that Rosie chose to join our board of directors. I was brought in to help amplify those stories with my team that has formed up north between the Yurok tribe and California State Parks. And that partnership includes the renaming of a local park, formerly Patrick's Point, now Sume State Park. It includes the co-management of Stone Lagoon Visitor Center, where the Yurok tribe now is running, managing, and speaking to the stories through their own set of Yurok interpreters who now work for California State Parks.
Conservationists and environmentalists have worked for over a century to save unique wildlife ecosystems in park systems, whether or not it's the national park system, state, regional, county, local. These areas are wonderful opportunities for nature education, for people's recreation, and for habitat for other species.
So one of our big focus areas is on something that's being called untold stories. So when you arrive at any park in the California system in coming years, you will know on whose native land you stand, but you'll also hear that story, we hope, from members of the tribe who have been calling that land their homes. That's why we're here, to look at what's working and to look at what's not, and try to form these creative partnerships to address those situations.
You have worked in the business community, and I have found that many companies utilize parks in their advertising. Sometimes I think it is a misuse of our park systems when you see automobiles advertised in wild areas and they're out there destroying them instead of protecting them. How much are these businesses protecting and helping save and create new parks?
That's a great question. I think there's tremendous opportunity for the private sector to get more involved across the board with California State Parks. One of our hopes and goals that we've set for Parks California to bring additional value into our relationship with California State Parks is that we are now starting to focus on what those private sector relationships, partnerships, or sponsorships can start to look like in how they benefit these beautiful spaces. To your point, they may use them in advertising. They may use them in movies, right? They're using them for concerts. What kind of relationship can we help to build as the nonprofit partner working from the inside out with California State Parks with these companies so that there's long-term advantage for these beautiful spaces that you're talking about?
We keep talking about 279 state parks. How many areas are proposed to become state parks? How difficult is it to create a new park?
That's a great question. There is a new park acquisition on the table right now, and that's in the Central Valley of California. It's called Dos Rios Ranch. We're waiting to see if that final budget approval comes through, but that would be a beautiful new space where it's much needed, just south of Modesto, California. How hard is it? I think the beauty that State Parks has here in California is their tremendous partner network. And I'll hold one of those partners up now who's working very closely with State Parks on that Big Basin situation. That park burned 2 years ago in a lightning fire. We're now partnering very closely with State Parks to help redesign, replan, and reimagine a climate-resilient park of the future. A partner working closely with state parks in the area is Semper Virens, and what they're working on is acquiring additional land that would become a part of that reimagined park of the future. The reason that's so important is you've got another nonprofit partner coming in to solve the acquisition question, opportunity. Well, you're looking at a park that was destroyed, 97% of it destroyed, that's now coming back to life, being reimagined and redesigned in partnership with Parks California. So you start to see that network building and specializations coming out partner by partner.
I have been to many state parks, whether or not they're historic, as you mentioned, in Los Angeles, or the wilderness in the San Jacinto Mountains or the beaches, many different places up and down the state of California. Large parks like Anza Borrego, parks in the Santa Monica Mountains, parks in Northern California, Central California. I wish I could visit all of them because there's such a variety. You have visited many. I'm sure people ask you, what's your favorite? And that's pretty difficult to answer.
They ask me all the time. So out of 279 California state parks, at 3.5 years in this role, I've made it to just about maybe I'm at 153 now. So I have quite a bit more to go. I have several favorites, and they really are because they are personally special to me. I love going up to the North Coast. I find those redwood parks and beaches all along the North Coast to be simply magical. I love the urban parks in the system, LA State Historic Park and Candlestick, where you can see the community hub that they become, that they're so needed for people who don't have as much green space and maybe who haven't been able to utilize a park in the way that many of us are able to. And then, of course, the beaches. All up and down California, the beaches. The system is so complex and so beautiful that to see only one type of park, it's almost impossible to understand how varied they are. And then when you add in those historic and cultural parks, the stories that are now really beginning to be told. It's just astonishing at how much you learn and feel when you're able to be in these places. And again, our goal, my goal personally, is to help everybody feel their own magic when they go to the park they choose to go to.
And I enjoy the mountain parks, the beauty of the scenery, of the trees, the plants, the rocks. There's so much to enjoy. Does each state park have a naturalist, have visitor centers where visitors can learn more about the incredible cultural and natural history of the area and what trails to hike and where they can camp?
That's a great question, Nancy. Each park sits within a district, and I would say at the district level what you'll find are interpreters who are essentially teachers. You'll find historians, archaeologists, tribal liaisons, and of course you'll find your peace officers, your district superintendents, who are all in different parks on different days doing the work that they do. There's also a fun approach that's been happening lately called Outer Spatial, and it's a phone app. And you know, people do carry their phones everywhere they go today, whether that's a choice you or I would make. Outer Spatial is a way to actually map out a plan within a park, looking at a trail system, learning about what's happening in that park or what you might see. You can look at it before you go to plan your travels. But yes, to your question, there are amazing state park employees everywhere that you go across these 279 parks who care about them probably more than anyone I've ever met. The state parks team members that we work with on the ground statewide and also in Sacramento truly love their jobs and love to tell you about their favorite places.
I know that the federal park system is lacking in the funding to be sure to restore areas, maintain areas, to provide the naturalists, to provide for scientific research in the areas, create more trail opportunities. Is the lack of money the same problem for the state parks?
State parks has seen a very healthy budget in the last 2 years under Governor Newsom. The real issue, I think, is time. It takes a long time to achieve goals and spend that money when you're in government. And one of the core reasons Parks California is here is to help spend those funds smartly, efficiently, and effectively in a much speedier way to drive that work forward.
I want to thank you so very much for caring about our park system here in the state of California. Thank you for being my guest.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
I have been speaking with Kindley Walsh Lawnor, who is President and CEO of Parks California. I'm Nancy Pearlman. Thank you very much for joining us, and do tune in again next week.
If you would like free information about these environmental issues, go to www.ecoprojects.org or call 310-559-9160. Environmental Directions with your host, Nancy Perlman, is a community affairs program of the nonprofit organization Educational Communications and this station.